The Streamlit Roadmap is out for the next 2 years. The data trio. What if you could connect to any database with a single Streamlit line of code? It took me 15 minutes to connect to Google Firestore in my Ask Me Anything video, and that was boring. There are libraries that provide a unified API to connect to different data backends like dbt or IBIS or even SQL Alchemy, so it's not like it's uncharted territory for Python. All the code to execute queries will go through a simple API like add rows, update rows, or remove rows, because this is common in Streamlit. And the way to connect to the database will only differ by the URL scheme. Dataframe was limited to displaying a pandas dataframe in the earlier versions of Streamlit, and that did its job. But there were recurrent issues around interactive editing and filtering, sorting the rows, row selection, embedding images and links, download table as CSV, or copy and pasting text into the cells. In May of 2022, the team has changed the front-end dataframe component from a custom React implementation to the Glide data grid library, which comes with most of those features baked in. Therefore, we can expect more and more of those features to be rolled out in future releases. In the meantime, if you want to check those features out, you can try the Streamlit AJ Grid component. Avra's YouTube channel has got 2 great tutorials about it. Go watch them now. But after my video. Database would create a key value store next to my Streamlit script where I can easily store and download data from. There's an initial prototype by Zachary on GitHub if you want to try it out. When he released it to Streamlit creators, he told us that he recreated my Ask Me Anything video in 5 minutes instead of an hour. I'm feeling bad. If I recall correctly, the harder bit of ST database is when you deploy to Streamlit Cloud. That means you have multiple instances or pods of the same app in the cloud, and if you connect here on Monday and store data, and then connect there on Wednesday, you don't have the same data anymore. So the workaround for this is to connect to an external data store so that all the instances have the same data in the middle, or you could have a shared volume across all of the pods so I can store a common ST database for all of the instances. Interactive everything. This one has been here forever. It's the most upvoted issue on GitHub, and there's been countless workarounds around this in the Streamlit community. Let me talk you through a few of them. User clicks on chart data point, clickable Plotly or bucket chart. User clicks on data frame rows, AJ grid. User clicks on 2 points of an image. Well, technically you can do this with a drawable canvas by putting the background image, drawing 2 points and computing the length of the SVG path between those 2 points. User zooms into a chart. I don't know why this makes me think of the Streamlit interactive folium component, where if you zoom on the map, you're going to get the bounds on the map, make a Google search of all the restaurants in those bounds, and then display them again on the folium map. There's a lot of cool use cases around this, from lasso selecting the outlier data points on a chart to analyze them further in Python, to building an Excel-like solution for data annotation where you would get the machine learning predictions and a column to give your feedback like this is true, this is false, this is true, this is false, and then retrain your machine learning model. I imagine it would be an API pretty similar to the session state callback ones. So on select or on click on ST data frame or ST line chart, area chart, bar chart. I would love to have this on Plotly chart or bucket chart or PyDeck chart, so I don't have to maintain the clickable Plotly or Bucky components anymore. Visual customization ++. Judging by the successful videos on my channel, I'd say this is the most awaited feature in Streamlit. More options for colors. I'm thinking linear gradient doesn't work as a background color for Streamlit theme. Logo positioning. I've seen some issues around people wanting to put the logo over the multi-page page selection menu, or even positioning the logo wherever they want on the page. Involves messing around the relative sizes of Streamlit columns to put it here or here. It's a bit of a trickery. You know you're becoming more of a front-end developer than a Python developer when you begin looking for how to center a div, but in Streamlit. There have been multiple issues around centering text or centering Lottie animations, for example. Nested columns and grid layouts is also regularly asked by the community, and there are layouts that you cannot easily replicate using only horizontal layout. And then there will be questions about justifying elements in the horizontal layout or in the grid, or aligning elements in the center, on the top, on the bottom, on the left, on the right. There's many questions around this. There are also questions about how we integrate our own CSS, like in Dash. Right now we can hack the CSS using the markdown trick, but it's still a bit hard to stylize a specific button in the app. So we'd love to have an element ID or a class ID injected on a specific widget, like a gradient does this, for example, so that it's easier to target it from our CSS file. But you do have to understand from the Streamlit point of view that simple and elegant brand design has been a Streamlit core principle for the last 3 years. I was watching the Adobe Max conferences for 2 days, so it was 16 hours of creative conferences, and you know what? Whoa, wait. That's Streamlit. If you're a new Python user and you see this app in an Adobe conference, you begin to tell yourself, hey, I've seen this before. I think it's called this Streamlit thing. I'm going to try this. So I understand the people that want to customize their Streamlit apps, yet the team that doesn't really want to lose this brand design, and there's a balance to be found for sure. I'm happy that the team is opening up to enabling us to customize the app. This is pretty new and recent, so it's time to work with them to show what exactly we want to customize in our Streamlit apps without losing this Streamlit brand identity. Custom components. 2. My favorite track. I built many components. I've tracked a lot of the community's components. It's rewarding to see so many plugins created for Streamlit by the community. I've produced a video tutorial about this. It's also one of my first written long blog posts, so I'm kind of a connoisseur. But even as a connoisseur, there are some odd logic around components. Issues I can think about right now. If you're building a custom component for a button, it's not easy to refresh the page immediately after clicking on the button. You need to hack this with a session state and experimental rerun. Also, passing values back and forth Python and the component. Right now, the way it's structured, you call your component from Python, it builds your front-end component over here, and from the component you can send back a value to Python, but you cannot programmatically send events from Python to your component back and forth like this. And that back and forth cycle makes me think of something. IP widgets. This is something that Panel loves to boast about, but it's true. Streamlit is lacking IP widgets. We have tried integrating it. It's not easy with the current structure, and hopefully with the V2 of custom components, we are able to work around the integration of IP widgets. That would be awesome. Performance. Each custom component goes into an iframe. So if you've got 50 custom components on your page, you've got 50 iframes, and your browser is dying. There was a demo around using lit to inject web components into Streamlit HTML. I don't know where that's at. And sometimes we'd like to go out of this iframe. For example, if you're building a notification toast for your Streamlit app, it's going to be blocked into the iframe. I'm definitely looking forward to this one. Machine learning is amazing in Streamlit. At first, I'm not really sure what it means yet. Maybe we're talking about better integration with Spacy for NLP or text annotation. Maybe some easy integration with SHAP or other model explainability system. Maybe it's about embedding a tensor board in your Streamlit app so you can visualize the training of your model in real time. That could be pretty nice actually. Is it about visualizing scikit-learn pipelines or downloading the model count of a Hugging Face model to display it in your app? That one I'm not really sure. I have an opinion on it. Please help me in the comments. Debugging is gosh darn delightful. That is hard to say. This one is interesting. I have to admit I'm still using the good old st.write or print in the console sometime to debug my Streamlit app, even if debugging a Streamlit app from your IDE is possible. A profiler would help us debug our memory problems and investigate our live objects so that we stop receiving those nightmarish "your app has gone over the resource limits." I know. I also want a variable inspector now to visualize what's in my session state, my cache, or what live objects exist right now in my app. All in a right sidebar like on the Streamlit community cloud. Yeah, that would be nice. Fun fact, Johannes, one of the Streamlit product managers, say hi, already has prototyped a profiler and a variable inspector if you want to check them out. Streamlit Cloud becomes a hub for community discovery. Well, that looks exactly what I said in my latest video. Imagine if you're talking about having an open source hub of all of the best or trending Streamlit apps, custom components or snippets with a pseudo social network where you can follow and connect with your favorite creators and comment or like on their apps and then share them on social media like Twitter or LinkedIn with a preview attached, and then those apps appear on Google search results and then you become rich and famous. That's the dream. I think this is a good hint of where Streamlit Community Cloud is going. It's going to stay the free solution to deploy your apps, and I'm excited to see the iteration for next year. And I don't think it's competing with Hugging Face Spaces. On a personal level, I consider Hugging Face Spaces to be the best space to showcase and discover the new and latest machine learning models, whereas the Streamlit Community Cloud would be more general purpose around your best data apps, and both will coexist and both will live under the same data app umbrella, and I'm excited for this. Towards stateless Streamlit. This is something you would only know by reading the Streamlit pull request, which I do for you so you don't have to do it, and that's why you subscribe to my Streamlit channel, right? Streamlit, like Jupyter Notebook, work using Tornado, a Python web server that delivers a beautiful React web app to your browser with which you can interact with using the Jupyter cells or the Streamlit sliders. And whenever there's a user interaction with the Jupyter Notebook or Streamlit app, well, the Streamlit session or Jupyter kernel will compute the associated Python code in a separate thread and then return the result back into your web app. In Streamlit, both the Tornado web server and the Streamlit session are very tightly coupled. It's not easy for us to deploy a Streamlit frontend on an environment like GitHub Pages or Vercel, which doesn't have a Tornado environment or a Python environment, and then connect that frontend back to a Streamlit session that is living somewhere else. For example, AWS Lambda or even Snowpark in Snowflake. Over the last few months, there has been a decoupling of both those parts, and this has probably started so that Streamlit could run on Snowflake with the Streamlit session running inside the Snowpark session, so that you get Streamlit natively supercharged by Snowflake. And talking about serverless, there is this gigantic initiative by Yuichiro, one of the Streamlit creators, who is building STLite, which stands for Streamlit in the browser using WebAssembly with Pyodide. That means I could run Streamlit entirely in the browser. I could build an HTML file, send you that HTML file, and you don't need to install Python on your computer. You open it in a browser and here you go. You got your Streamlit app with the Python running in the browser. If the decoupling proves successful, then STLite can get rid of the Tornado dependency. We don't need to send you any HTML anymore. It's already in your browser. And if we go a step further, now that your Streamlit session is here and your Tornado web server is here, we could replace Tornado by FastAPI or Flask or Django channels, and we could embed Streamlit inside a Django website, a FastAPI website, or in the long term, instead of Python, we'll have node.js or Julia or R, so you can embed Streamlit in Next.js or Vue.js or Julia website. I haven't really thought about all of the ramifications, but yeah. this is still a long way to go. We're not there yet, obviously. But anyway, if there's decoupling of the runtime and the server, then maybe we can also manipulate the web server to add our own custom HTTP request handlers, to add routes to download images or static elements, or manipulate the cache through the API. I don't know, that's... Yeah, just I'm dreaming right now, and I admit I am dreaming, okay? In short, when the team says we want to see Streamlit become the UI layer for Python, it is true in all sorts of ways, and this shows how Streamlit has evolved. Tell me in the comments if there are things that get you excited, or if you're missing things in this roadmap. Remember to be kind in the comments, okay? And I'll see you in the next one if you want to learn more about Streamlit. Bye!